And we're here. Mitchell, it's great to have you back again today.
It's good to be back. I think the last time I was here was right before a pandemic happened.
Yes, and now the whole world seems to be falling apart around us.
And yet I'm oddly, eerily, weirdly calm through all
Yeah,
of this. I mean, I've truly had to practice my mindfulness. And I keep telling people the one thing COVID-19 has taught me is to go with the flow. You wake up or right before you go to bed, you get an email that's telling you something so different about what's going to happen tomorrow at work. And you just go, all right, let's go.
so if I remember correctly, right, you were on the show right before you were going on a cruise, right? Because I
Yeah,
because I had Frank King on, who was stuck on the cruise line that you were going on.
correct.
So what happened with that?
So, yes. So, originally, my husband and I were going to get on a boat March like 11. Actually, we were going to fly to Hong Kong, get on a boat like March 11 or 12, go to Shanghai, Beijing, all that stuff. And about January, when we started seeing things going a little haywire over there, I called that the cruise line, and they were amazing, truly amazing cruise line. And we jumped ship literally, and we're going to then head out of San Diego, down Mexico, through Panama Canal, Aruba, Curacao, back to Fort Lauderdale. So then a little 3-hour drive home. So it was going to be a lot shorter travel time. And, as a psychic and medium, I kept checking in. I would pull cards. It was really close to me. So I kept feeling like, you know what? I still feel like we're supposed to go. I feel like we'll be okay. And the funny thing is probably a couple weeks before we're going to go, I actually got like an upper respiratory infection, and I never get sick. And I was like, you better give me something for that. And they gave me amoxicillin or something like that, and I was fine. But now I look back and think I might have actually had COVID-19, and they just didn't know about it because it was so early on.
Right.
But really odd things, just that congestion. But so I was fine, got on the boat. Um, we got 4 days in, 2 days at sea, and then went to Puerto Vallarta on the fourth day. My birthday, actually, Saturday the 14th. Had a great day that day. Nobody on the boat was sick, nothing, no hubbub on our ship. And that night, sitting at dinner after having a great day on Puerto Vallarta, the little ding, 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 over dinner comes on. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, this is the one thing we never really wanted to have to say, but tomorrow everybody's off the boat. So March 15th was the day that they pretty much said, okay, 100-day of no sailing. So it was a major airport, which was good. Within 2 hours of them making an announcement, I was on orbits. We had, Wi-Fi there. Jumped on orbits, had flights home. It was actually, so the next morning, we got on the plane like 11. We were home by 8 p.m. So Puerto Vallarta, Dallas, Orlando, home. And it was actually the fastest re-entry into the country I've ever experienced. 7 minutes through immigrations, because like nobody was flying at that point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like boom, bam, in and out. And the good thing is that they completely refunded that cruise, totally refunded, even though we were on there 4 days, and gave us the base pay of that cruise free for a future cruise. So,
Wow.
and that's good business,
Yeah.
because not many people are gonna want to jump back on a ship anyway. But I know we've got a free cruise waiting for us out there. So yeah, came home, and because the company I work for, as our boat left the dock, I checked my email one last time, and because the company I work for said, if you come back from a cruise, you have to spend 14 days in isolation. So as I leave, they're telling me that, and I'm thinking, oh, I gotta use all this paid time off. And the funny thing is the day that I was released from my 14 days of quarantine, self-quarantine, was actually the day I was supposed to come back from the cruise anyway. So everything kept lining up perfectly. Like, this is the way it's supposed to be. Still got the time off, got a free cruise. None of us were sick. And I do know our boat went on to help one of the ships that was circling the southern part, from Chile around to Buenos Aires, that already had people that had died, and several, people. So it was going with food, nurses, doctors down to help that one. So yeah, so it was a close call, but yet I still felt like everything was fine for us.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a wild couple of months since I've been here with you.
So you have another free cruise when
Yeah.
when everything gets back to somewhat normal, I
Yeah,
suppose.
and at the recording of this, cruise ships have not been released yet.
Yeah.
It's going to be a total of 6 months. The last time I checked and saw what they were saying.
It's you know again, people will sit there and we talk about, closing down the economy and how it's hurting businesses and stuff. And of course, I don't want to get into the whole, bailing out corporations and things
Yeah.
of that nature. But I know there was a lot of people who were, saying, well, cruise lines shouldn't be bailed out simply because, they start their business in another country, so they don't have to pay taxes, so they
Yeah.
shouldn't be bailed out. So it'll be interesting to see how all this pans out
Yeah. Well.
when it's all said and done.
Well, and I will say, you know, this is not to brag, but the last 4 months of my intuitive psychic work has been very busy. And I think part of it is, people kind of looking for answers. But and when I say answers, not so much about what's going on in the world, but a lot of people kind of, because I feel a lot of people have been, sequestered, not able to do the normal life. And so a lot of their attention has been turned inward. So they're doing a lot of soul searching, purpose searching, what's my life really about searching. And I've got a lot of those kind of clients. And then again, oddly enough, this is into the boo-boo stuff. Um, this is when you probably notice, I don't know that necessarily is the case, but you start to notice a whole lot more, you know, people passing away, and not necessarily from the virus and stuff like that, but just like it's a powerful time I think that the globe is going through. It's a collective focus on like almost one thing. And, I do animal communications, and I've had a lot of animal communications with animals that have crossed over in the last couple of months as well. And, people wanting to know, how are they? What happened? Do they have any messages for me? So it's been kind of an interesting, 4 or 5 months. So there's always been this kind of overlooming COVID fear stuff
Yeah.
with people coming to me, or not even fear, just like, but just questioning what's going on. Because a lot of people, it depends on which side of the fence they're on. A lot of people are like, we'll get through this, we'll be fine.
Well, I'm one of those people, I go, look, you prepare for the best that you can, and that's what you do, and use some common sense, and I have an issue with people who don't want to wear masks. Now, saying that, of course, you and I are in the studio, we're not wearing a mask. Um, and I also know that we've taken precautions to make sure that neither one of us have COVID-19 and that we're not passing it on and things of that nature. But when I'm out in public, I'll wear a mask, not necessarily because I feel like it's for me, but I know that there are people out there who have anxiety about it. And I go, if me wearing a mask for 10, 15 minutes while I'm out of the store makes people feel more comfortable, and it actually, can help prevent from either getting it or giving it,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I do that? Regardless of how I feel about this, why wouldn't I just do that just to be kind to my fellow man? And I just find so many people out there are so self-centered, and and they'll sit there and go, you're a snowflake because you got to wear a mask. And I'm going, yeah, you're the same guy carrying an AR-15 through Target because you're scared that someone's going to mug you in Target.
Yeah.
It's like, so I find the contradiction, from people to be somewhat hilarious if it wasn't, so serious, I guess.
And I think you said, for me, what is the biggest thing is, I wear the mask for me, but more importantly, I wear it for somebody else.
Right.
Just again, for the comfort level of them. And I think that comes from a place of compassion, I guess. I would think so. I also know that I work in a company that, for 2.5 weeks, I was at a drive-through testing site. That was part of my redeployment for the company I work for, and I'm not clinical at all. And currently, 2 days a week, 6 hours, everybody that comes into our campus and facility, I'm checking temperatures. So I know what it's like to be, I don't like the word front line, but I mean, I was collecting spit and moving it from one cooler to the next and giving it to the person who would drive it away and go test it. So, I wasn't in a unit filled with people with COVID, but I was certainly seeing, 300 to 500 people a day driving through in a car, that kind of stuff. So it's been and then again, just the word compassion comes out, and that's not a word I use about myself a lot. I feel like I am a compassionate person, but maybe it's just so, I don't know, natural for me that I don't necessarily feel it. But it was interesting to see the humanity in people, and you said something a minute ago that made me think of, I try not to watch too much, TikTok, of course, we may lose it. But but I watch the TikTok videos, and it amazes me, the anger and rage that come out in people. And I find it. This is one of the things I thought you might talk about was, and I find my own rage and anger coming up, and sometimes at them. These people who are having their outbreaks and outrageous stuff, especially if in Starbucks, because I'm a Starbucks fan, and I know it's a big corporation, but I started just questioning myself. Why am I having so much rage and anger? Where's that coming from? And not so much just like, and it feels uncontrollable, like they're exhibiting. Not so much just, oh my gosh, I am so mad that this is going on. I'm going to do something. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to, picket. I'm going to, march. But just like where I wanted to punch them, that stuff. And for me, that's shadow work. And I feel like that's something that, this country has been dealing with for almost 4 years now. And I think the pandemic has really intensified it for a lot of people. And shadow work is basically that part in you that is either unconscious, subconscious, that you've pushed, denied, thwarted, kept hidden, that the moment you see somebody else doing it, the rage and anger comes out in you. And another good way of thinking that, think of somebody that just royally pisses you off, or they push your buttons. Whatever they're doing, most likely is your shadow, and it's something that you have the capability within yourself and you probably not dealt with. And that's been something that has been really interesting to see, you know, come out in a lot of people. And I know,
When you say haven't dealt with, what do you mean?
um, let's take, like a very white privileged Karen. When I see that rage and that anger come out and I feel it in myself, I'm like, I know, I'm a gay man, but I'm a white man, and I absolutely know I have privilege, and have I dealt with the fact that I have privilege and that I've used my privilege, and the rage and the anger of whatever they may be throwing it at, and if I start having it bubble up in me, then I realize that's something I need to work on myself because it's still there.
Really, you don't think, because okay, so I'm going to challenge you on
Yeah,
this,
go for it.
because here's the thing. When
This
I
is why I
see,
like showing up here.
so when I see people who, especially Karens, and I know this is going to sound hypocritical of me, and maybe it is. I despise when people use, you know, made up terms like boomer, because to me, or they'll say something like mansplaining or whatever. All that is a way to get people to shut their voices down. So if you're older and you have a difference of opinion, I'll call you a boomer, which will make you seem ridiculous, and it just shuts your voice down. And that's my whole purpose, is to do that. If I sit there and want to shut a man down and I'm a woman, I just sit there and go, oh, there you go, mansplaining. It's to shut the man's voice down, as if he's not supposed to have a right to have a voice or an opinion in this. And Karens are the same way. And it's funny because, especially on YouTube, if you watch YouTube at all, there's a million Karen videos out there. And and this is where I go, they finally got one group that they should have focused on, because there are women like that out there who have been doing this for decades and decades, who will sit there and use the fact that they're a woman. They'll use, every tactic in the book. They'll start screaming bloody murder to look like they're the victim when they're not. And they've been doing this for ages and getting away with it. And now, with the advent of, camera phones, they're getting caught doing this nonsense. And I almost feel like it's justice finally being served on this particular group who've used this to their advantage, and against, people that it should never have been used against. So when I see these Karen videos, I'm going, oh, good. And what I get upset with is the Karen, because she's so obviously blatantly oblivious, or she knows what she's doing and doesn't care, that I go, my anger is towards her. It's not because I haven't recognized white privilege. It's because she hasn't. And I want to go, what is it going to take for you to wise up? what is it going to take for you to wise up to realize all the advantages that you have that other people don't have, and that you sitting there calling the police or threatening to call the police on someone of color and not realizing the risk that you put them at, or you do realize and you don't care that this person could be killed because of your own ignorance or because of your own, your own greed, for the lack of a better word right now.
Yeah.
I get mad at that. I'm not mad at me because I don't understand it. I get mad at them because they're either ignoring it or they don't.
Well, and I, maybe I'm not explaining it the best way. Like, yes, I get mad at them for that, but I also, what I'm trying to say is, like, there's this moment where there's a rage inside of me that comes up that I know is not, it's more about what I'm seeing in them as a reflection of myself. And that's shadow work. And maybe Karen's not a good example that I'm using, but in other words, just look at where we are, in our world right now with, with politics and with just the anger. And I just remember thinking, this is our country's shadow coming out, because a lot of people knew what we're seeing now on a broad scale was still there, but a lot of people had no clue that it wasn't there. Just like racism. I mean, you pretty much can talk to any black person and let's say, oh yeah, it's always been there. But again, me, I've thought to myself, because I've gone to some of my friends that I work with who are black, and I said, can you tell me just a little bit about your experience the last like 10 years of your life and what I'm seeing now? Because I really feel like I've been ignorant of things. And I know one person said, and I love this because they said, it's not my job to educate you. I said, but I'll tell you my experience. And I said, thank you for saying that, because then what I've done is I've listened to podcasts, watched YouTubes, trying to educate myself as best I can about what other people's experiences are and about how I can make a difference, we can make a difference, the difference that's being made. And when I see, we talked a little bit before we started recording just about clickbait and things like that. And it's like, I try to, find at least 3 references online that are showing me at least the truth, because there's so much false stuff out there or misleading stuff out there. So like I said, so for me, shadow work is really dealing with those feelings, beliefs that are deep inside of you that you've maybe not worked on. And when you get a very visceral response to somebody else, not just anger at injustice, but a visceral response, it's usually a recognizing of likeness. And I always tell people, I said, did you ever have a friend that when you first met them, they just pissed you off and now you're best friends with them? That's probably because in the beginning they were showing you your true self and it made you angry. And then you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. That's me. And I was seeing a reflection of myself, which, you either deal with it or that friend really moves on. But a lot of times we deal with the deep psychological stuff that's, kind of shadow work below the surface that we've started. I think of, I remember growing up thinking, watching my dad being just, I tiptoed around him. I never knew when he was going to get mad because if I did something right or wrong. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be like that. So here I am stuffing my anger and my rage down inside because I didn't want to be that way. I didn't want to snap at the drop of a hat, snap and yell at somebody. So if I'm a good boy, then I'm not. So I've learned to deal with, my anger and my rage and not worry if someone doesn't like me, not because I yell and scream at them, but because I just express my opinion,
Right.
which is different than theirs. So it's shadow work is a challenging one. And if anybody listening to this wants to do any kind of shadow work, Debbie Ford is a great author of the book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And it's really kind of interesting book to kind of read into. It's not a long book. And another good one is Byron Katie, The Work. Both very powerful stuff about, dealing with the stuff that's kind of hidden inside that we've pushed, squashed, thwarted, buried. That's, I think is bubbling up because we can't help it right now.
I think you make an important point in acknowledging that we all have this dark shadowing side of us, because I know it's a challenge when like, for instance, my whole thing is about, as I've told you before, and as everyone who's listened to this podcast knows, it's about, I want to challenge people's beliefs. I want them to challenge their beliefs, challenge their knowledge, and look at things from different perspectives, because our beliefs and our knowledge are limited by the number, by the different perspectives that we have, or that we've been able to see things through. So we only look at things from one perspective. We only have the knowledge, and our belief is formed from that one perspective. If we were able to look at it from different perspectives, we would have a different amount of knowledge and a different set of beliefs, and we would have a more full truth, if you will.
Yeah.
I've said that our truth is limited to our perspectives that we have on things. And so, while it may be our truth, it's not the truth if you haven't looked at it from all the different perspectives, because you're only seeing one side
Yeah.
of that particular topic. So in saying that, knowing that that's what I want and that's what I do for myself, people somehow think that like whenever you want to better yourself, like you're supposed to be perfect and you're supposed to be some sort of like Gandhi figure or something where nothing upsets you. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. I still get plenty upset. I get upset when people refuse to challenge their beliefs, because I find myself losing patience with them, because I go, you're deliberately ignoring the fact that you could be wrong. You don't want to look at it because you're scared to look at it.
Yeah.
And so I find myself getting angry with these people, because I've often said this: I'm prejudiced against one people, and that's stupid people, because I just have no patience for them, because they want, you know it's one thing to be ignorant because you don't know any better.
Yeah.
But when you're shown the truth and you choose to continue to be willfully ignorant, you're stupid at that point.
Yeah.
And I have no patience for stupid people. And I don't want to overcome that. That's a shadow I'm okay with. Yeah, so, and yet I don't want to project this, this like, I'm doing this balancing act, I find.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that either. I just want to be who I am and go, look, I believe in challenging your perspectives. I believe in challenging your beliefs and your knowledge, but I don't have to be a puss about it.
Yeah.
If I see that something's wrong and you're wrong, I guess that's where I get to the point where I go, I can see a perspective, doesn't mean I agree with it.
Yeah.
Just because I'm willing to look at it doesn't mean I just simply change my beliefs. And I don't think anyone should. I think beliefs are there for a reason, and perspectives and beliefs and knowledge, that shouldn't change easily. You shouldn't just change at the drop of the hat. And I've seen people who do that as well. I've seen them buy into something because all of a sudden it sounds good and everyone else is buying into it, so they buy into it. And I go, you haven't challenged that either. It's like, don't just challenge yourself. Challenge anything that you hear. If you hear me say it, challenge it.
Yeah.
Don't just believe it because I say it or because someone wrote a book and they said it. That doesn't make them an expert. They might know more than you, but that doesn't make them an expert. I can't tell you how many people I've trained throughout my life. I mean, with giving advice and help and everything else, it's got to be in the thousands.
Yeah.
I have seen personal trainers who knew less than my clients, who knew less about training than my clients, because I teach my clients how. I go, look, I want you to be with me because you want to be, not because you need to be. And so I give them the information they need so that one day, if they want to go off on their own, they can. Most trainers don't do that because they want them to depend on them.
Yeah, when I remember, I started training, I was in group fitness since 1998, and then, no, 88. And then personal training in 95. And I remember them saying, this is one of the few jobs where you're working to work yourself out of the job.
Right.
Because, and of course that we know that's not true, because people love to have someone hold them accountable, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
But that was the case. It's like you're teaching someone how to work out and giving them plans and programs so they can do it on their own, so to speak. But nowadays it's shifted a little bit more where, they do like to have the accountability. They do want someone there. And, we've all, as trainers, we've all been babysitters.
Right.
And that's okay. Because for me, I don't mind. I never minded taking their money because they still worked out. I didn't.
Right.
I didn't just sit there.
Right. No. And that's the thing. And you're right. You are providing a very important service to them, because you are, that's the thing. Even as personal trainers ourselves, I always like having a workout partner, because that workout partner holds me accountable.
Yep.
So we're providing them with knowledge of how to work out properly without getting injured, what the best workouts are, to gain, whatever their goal is to get there most efficiently. But I've seen personal trainers where I go, I do not know how you can sit there and call yourself a personal trainer and look at yourself in the mirror and be okay with it. I don't,
Yeah.
because you're just bored. Like I've seen personal trainers that if I hadn't been there would have torn socket, I mean, like shoulders out of the sockets
Yeah.
before. And I go, what is wrong with you people? Seriously. And so, in fact, I was going to ask about that because, as a psychic, just like with personal training, I've seen it with chiropractors, I've
Well,
seen it with acupuncturists. There are frauds out there.
oh yeah.
So how does a person, because I'll get that with personal
What
training.
I was
How
going
do
to
I find
say,
it? How do you do that with psychics?
I was going to say, even as a psychic and medium, my personal mantra. I mean, people are going to show up and ask me for a session and stuff like that, but ultimately, I'm like, you can do this on your own. I know it's good to have like that unbiased outside kind of person look in and hey, here's my food plan. Can you look over it, make sure I'm doing it? Yeah, sure. Here's my workout plan. Can you make? Yeah, sure. You're doing good. Keep it up. But ultimately, I think we talked about this last time. I believe everybody is psychic. I believe everybody can connect to their angels, to their guides, to those on the other side. Just like we can all sing. Not all of us sing like Pavarotti or Celine Dion, but we can all sing.
Not
You know,
everyone sings in key
and
either.
if you practice and work at it, you can get better at it. So all that being said, some people can tap in and work better than others, and there's all different kind of modalities and tools, and from tarot cards to pendulums to runes, to chakras to whatever you want to look at. That can help guide you along your path. But ultimately, for me, I consider myself more of a coach than anything else. Do I predict? Yes, but I also follow up with, hey, you know what? This is most likely what the outcome of your event or question is. But the bottom line is, the moment you walk away from this or hang the phone up or the FaceTime or Skype with me, you're creating your path. You are setting your intention. It's just like if I said, hey, go down Highway 50, you're going to get to Melbourne eventually. But if all of a sudden you're driving down the road and you get distracted, you make a left turn, I didn't, I predicted you'd make it to Melbourne, but you made a turn
Right.
because you just saw a shiny object. And now you're on a different road.
So, all right. So again, I hate saying when I say again, when you have people who like yourself who are psychic and you make predictions, would you say that the predictions tend to come true because the you're setting it in motion by giving them that thought, that idea, that you're basically just setting it in motion. They're sitting there going, he's the psychic, he said this, so it must be true. So it's sort of like a doctor. If a doctor says you're going to get better in 6 weeks, they get better in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If they say you're going to die, you die.
Yeah.
Like they take, like a lot of people take what you say because again they hold you in high esteem, and they believe what you say.
Yeah.
Um,
So yes. So in other words, and that's why, like I just said a minute ago, I followed up with, it's like, here's what I'm seeing. Does that sound good to you? Yeah, I like that. I said, okay, great. Then hold that as your intention. You would like that. I said, but you know what? There might even be something better than this result for you. So if you want, the best way to create the life that you want is from your heart center through emotions. So, when I talk about people, a lot of times want to find love, and I say, you know what, I like vision boards. I think they're great. I said, but sometimes if you put the pictures and the images and the words up on the vision board, as long as they continue to make you feel good, then that's a positive thing. But the moment you look at that vision board and go, oh man, I still don't have that. That's want, want, want. That's dense, heavy energy pulling you kind of back down into a negative space, so to speak. So if I coach someone on finding love, I'll say, just imagine laying in bed at night and just reach your hand over to the other side of the bed and just imagine holding the hand of someone you love. Imagine feeling secure with them. Now imagine feeling financially secure with them. You don't want to say, oh, I want my new lover to make $200,000 a year. Just feel financially secure with them, because you may get someone that makes $500,000, even more than the intention you set. Make sure that you feel secure with them, like you can take care of them, they can take care of you. All of that just creating the emotion behind it and how good it feels to have that. That's when I believe and most people who teach this, that's when we believe, that's when the universe kind of looks down and goes, oh crap, there's the emotion, but I need to supply the physical part of that. And I believe it can happen very quickly as long as you can hold it. Now, if you wake up the next morning and go, oh, never gonna find love. Okay, and that's the self-fulfilling prophecy. You're never going to find love. I'm going to find someone that this is the feeling that's going to resonate with me. So yes, if I do make a prediction, I usually follow it up with, this is the most likely outcome I'm seeing and feeling. That's kind of how this works. If you like it, great, hold on to it. If you don't, dream bigger, go farther. If that's not the direction you feel like is the best, then let's figure out a way to shift and change this. A good one is like someone will say, you know, should I take this new job in California and leave Orlando? And I said, well, and I'll pull cards. I'll say, so let me pull two cards. I said, if you take the job, what's life going to look like for you? If you stay in Orlando, what's life going to look like for you? Now, how does that feel? Do you like, oh, if I go to California, it's going to be a lot of work, but the payoff's going to be big. If I stay in Orlando, it's going to be safe. It's going to be comfortable. You're going to be around family. What do you want? I personally like safe and comfortable sometimes, but when at 54 years old, I don't necessarily know that I want to challenge myself for a big payoff.
Right.
Go through a lot of 2 or 3 years of hell trying to climb the ladder once again to get a big payoff. I may just stick with safe and comfortable until I finally retire in 9 to 10 years. So this is where it's like I lay out kind of like what I would call options for them, and then allow them to kind of head in that direction. And and a lot of times I know people have said, oh my gosh, what you said came true. And I said, oh, what was that? And they'll repeat it back to me. And I'm kind of like thinking in my mind, that's not what I said, but that's what you heard.
Right.
And again, that's the other thing in this line of work. Sometimes it's what they're hearing versus what I'm saying, because they're kind of connecting to it. So do I believe there's self-fulfilling prophecy? Absolutely, because that's creation and manifesting and setting the intentions. And as I believe good psychics and mediums should do, is continue to enforce that you're in charge of your life. I'm giving you a glimpse into what is right now, but tomorrow, all of this is different, unless you're heading down the same path. And another example, I'll say, if I see someone stumble out of the bar, grabbing their keys, getting in the car, and I go, oh, that's not going to end good. Is that a prediction? Yeah. But as I walk away, their best friend could come running out, grab the keys away, call them an Uber, or they could get in the car and fall asleep until the next morning when they wake up sober. So my first thought was, that's not going to end good. And the second, then what may happen is they fall asleep, wake up, drive home, everything's fine. So like at that moment, that's what I'm seeing. It's like that.
So would a better way to phrase the questions, like let's say, for instance, if I was that person and said, look, I have this opportunity to go out to California. And maybe I'm adventurous and I go, yeah, I'm thinking that would make me happy because now I could, have this new challenge. Even at my age, I had this new challenge and I'm up for it. Would a better way to phrase the question, rather than should I take it or not take it, or should it be like, will I be happier out there? And what does my life look like in the scheme of 10 years? Am I going to be happier out there 10 years later than if I were to stay here? Can you see that? Can you predict that?
And asking the question is, I think, very important. As someone who reads cards, and often tarot cards, Lenormand cards, it's all about the question, and which again, we're back to intention. Is he going to call me? We get that a lot. When's he going to call me? Tuesday. This Tuesday, next Tuesday, 10 years from now, Tuesday, Tuesday. So, what would the better question be is, I just met someone the other day. Is there anything that I can do to reinforce that this relationship will continue? Or should it continue? Or, is this someone, the questions are just really important part of it. So to get back to yours, would I be able to predict, like, will you be happy out there? I would probably, and the way I work is I would probably see the energy of you out there. If I pulled cards, which that I may not for that question, I might just kind of like in my mind, I would put you out in California, like on a map, and I would just kind of see your energy, your reaction. And everybody, this is where everybody kind of works a little differently. I might see you as like a little tiny person on a map standing out there. And if I see you with your shoulders kind of shrugged down and just feel the energy of heaviness, then it might be kind of a heavy vibe out there. You might feel lonely out there. If I put you in my mind, if I put you out in California, I immediately see a group of people around you and you're all dancing and jumping up and, drinks in hand and, I think pot's legal out there. I don't know if you smoke or not, but it's like, I see that, it's like, okay, it's going to be a party time. It's going to be a lot of fun. If in my mind, if I see you in a large, big home, great. If I see you in a cardboard box, on the side of the road, then it may not be that good. So again, that's how I might see your energy if I put you out there. And again, that's what I would call best case scenario out there. But again, you may get out there and find that it's not for you and the energy shifts, or you may, at that point, someone dear that you love back home may have had an issue and they want to call you back, or, bring you back here to help take care of them, kind of a thing. So there's just, honestly, there's so much involved. And I usually say, this is what I feel like is most likely outcome. But again, you have that will, that free will, and that choice and that direction to go. And if you continue on the path you're going, then this is probably the most likely outcome.
So you don't believe in predestination of any sort?
Yeah, and that's one of those, when I get to the quote unquote, because I don't believe in the pearly gates, but when I get to the pearly gates, I'm going to say, what is this about? The best analogy I can come up with is, and I don't necessarily like the analogy of like this is a school, but let's say we come down here to get our PhD. Some people just come down here to graduate college. I mean, high school. Some people just get their GED to get out of here. But if you come down for your PhD, then or you're just your 4-year degree, you're here to get a degree. And yes, there are certain requirements that you must take to get to that degree. And then there's a whole bunch of electives. So the electives can be all over the place. So do I feel like there are certain predestined moments and points? I do. But I also feel like you have free will, because just like college, you can get to a course and go, God, this is not what I wanted. I'm going to change my major. I'm out of here. And that could be, truly, that could be you exiting this lifetime, circling back around for another lifetime.
So you believe in reincarnation?
I do. Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
so those of us who just came down here to party, are we having to come back? Is that what you're saying?
Um, I believe that some people go, gosh, I had too many responsibilities for too long. I just want to come down and have fun.
That's me. I swear, I feel that way sometimes. I go,
what? But pause. What an amazing experience to have. What if you came down? Can I cuss on?
Yeah, you get.
What if you came down just to be a total fuck up? I mean, that is a full-on experience to have.
And it's a full-time job.
Right. And I mean, it's like you may have come down to have an experience where you only lived 10 years. Or you may have come down to live that 105-year-old and be that, I'm looking at we've got a dachshund at home, and he's going to be 19 in a few days of this recording.
Oh.
And, I always, 5 years ago, I was saying, all right, buddy, how long are you going to hang around? We love you, And I'd say that maybe every 2 or 3 months. Now we're saying it almost daily. Everybody, we love you. I remember saying, I will put a diaper on you, for as long as you want to hang out. He eats, he sleeps, he's just, at least an old man. He's like 136 years old. And I kept saying, you don't have to hang around forever for us. And then one day, as an animal communicator, he literally kind of like just looked back at me. This is all visual in my head. He looked back at me. He was like, dude, I'm here for me. I want to experience,
right.
I want to experience this long life. I'm not staying here for you, which a lot of dogs and cats and animals do. They stay there for their owner. They want to be there and help them do something. But I believe he chose to have this long life, and 19 years old is a long life for a dog, so I think that's what part of his choice.
Well, I keep telling people, and no one believes me. I keep telling them I'm going to live to be 120, and I go, and I'm doing it for me, because I want to be a thorn in people's side for as long as I can. So I go.
Well, you know what? And here's, when I started saying 120 was about 25, 30 years ago. I read Dr. Norman Walker's book. He was, quote, the father of juicing. And I was doing a whole lot of juicing. I tried the vegan thing for a little bit, and it was a lot of work in my body. Really struggled against that.
You know why?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. But I could totally live off of fruits and vegetables. I love them, but I do feel like who I am and where I am, I still need a little bit of that meat, and it may be self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't know, but we'll see. I figured if someone cooked for me, I'd be pretty good. And I avoid gluten at this point too. But anyway, where was I going? So I remember reading his book, and he lived to 119, wrote his last book at 118. And I remember going, oh my God, I'm going to live to 120. Like I've always felt I was going to live to 120 and a healthy.
Right.
And you said you want to be a thorn in everybody's sides. For me, it's not that I want to be a big fat Buddha, but Wayne Dyer, I don't know if you know who.
Yes, of course I do.
So I've always looked at him going, oh my gosh, like not envious, but like a role model, because it's like, how do these phrases and sayings and things, because a lot of what he says he learned, and he always gives credit to the Buddha, the Tao, the Buddha, he says who said what. And I remember thinking, where does he get all that? And it's just because of years and years and years of studying and practicing and putting into his life. And I thought to myself, that's how I'm going to end off the last third of my life. So probably from 80 to 120, I'm going to be like the Wayne Dyer kind of a guy.
The nice guy.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'll be talking to animals the rest of my life at that point. But I really feel like that's, and I'll never forget. I was sat down in front of a medium in a circle with a bunch of people, and as she went around the room, she came to me and she looked at me. She goes, "Oh my God!" She rolled her eyes at me, and I was like, "What's wrong with her?" She said, "You have been a monk and a priest so many times I can't even count." And I literally went like this. I believe you, because I felt like I've had that minimalistic lifestyle, that religious structure, because I'm, as a gay psychic tarot card reader, I'm just like busting out of every closet you can in this lifetime, bucking a, a very conservative family, small town, Polk County, Florida kind of a thing. So it's like, I'm really here to bust out of a bunch of, closets and doors. And that's part of my fear was, will people like me? It was a huge one that I had to, get past. I'm still working past.
See, I don't have that fear, and I think it's because I believe people like you when you are being you, when you're being genuine, and that's one thing I'm good at is being genuine.
But I also don't think you're afraid of confrontation.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. Not in the. I don't like it. I mean, it's not like I go looking for it.
Yeah.
Going, oh, I want to start something.
My intrinsic being would rather make sure everybody feels comfortable and happy in the situation.
Yeah.
But there's a limit. There's absolutely boundaries. And once I crossed that boundary, that's where I had to deal with some rage, because I'll never forget, my older brother was like just being mean to the babysitter. And she was only like 4 or 5 years older than him. But I'll never forget like telling him, stop, stop, stop. Finally, I grabbed the baseball bat and chased him through the house and put a hole in the bathroom door. And I remember looking back at that going, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had that in me. But I also know when my family business was being broken into, and there was my dad had the guy in the van in a headlock, and I'm standing there with 2 baseball bats in my underwear. Again, mom's on the phone calling the police. One guy's running off, and the van with my dad holding him in a headlock backed across the parking lot. My dad nailed the telephone pole, almost broke his shoulder. The van bounced up into my apartment, into the kitchen. It was like 2 or 3 feet pushed in. And as he's sitting in the van, and it's kind of cocked up with the headlights facing down, my dad's in front of the van with the headlights on him, and the kid's trying to put it into gear. And all I could see was him running over my dad. Well, that's when click, and I came running across the parking lot and just started wailing on the front windshield with the baseball bats. Never would I think I would do something like that, but I saw my dad being run over in my head.
Right.
And instantly I recognized the kid. And I said his name. I said, stop. And he like just dropped. I think he was high, but the kid went to my church. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's a church kid breaking into our business, stealing motorcycles. But yeah, it was a really bizarre experience. But again, there's that rage that came out, so it was really interesting how it was just bubbling below the surface. But again, my job, my main goal is to make sure everybody's happy, okay. But if I get pushed too far, then I will.
Well, I think most people will snap at some point that everyone has a limit.
Yeah.
And some of them, like you're just so nice that it takes a while. Me, I just, yeah.
And boundaries have been, something I've had to learn how to set and,
right.
And not let people cross them, because that's just, I was the middle child. As long as I'm good, I don't get a spanking. And that's how I grew up. Be good.
Yeah. Well, with me, I go, when I say I want to be a thorn in people's side, it's like this, is that all through my life, I've proven people wrong. I don't know. I cannot tell you.
What does a thorn do? This is intuiting. A thorn makes you pay attention.
Right.
In the moment to something festering. A thorn is there to get you to look.
Yes, I want you to know that I'm always right.
Yeah.
I always tell people, listen, you're gonna appreciate my genius when I'm gone. So it's gonna be a while before that happens.
That's why you're doing this podcast and writing.
I seriously remember watching Johnny Carson back in the day, and he had some guy on who was like 100 years old or maybe 100 and something years old. And so he asked him what was, his key to longevity of life. And I remember his words, but I remember going, I want to be on Johnny Carson. I want to tell everybody exactly, going, why I'm so old? It's because I'm not stupid. That's why. this And I was always right about everything. I told people I was going to live to be 120, and no one believed me. Well, where are they? Oh yeah, they're dead. They're not here to see me at 120.
Yeah.
So
And see, I wanted to be on something like Carson, but not doing that, but
right,
like
exactly.
entertaining. My degree is in theater. I mean, I was an actor for several years. So I started group fitness and personal training and acting all at the same time. And I was an improviser for a while, and I owned a small theater and had a great time. But I also look back and think, oh my gosh, my improv trained me so well to get out of my own way with my intuitive work, because that's usually it's when your ego gets in the way on stage as an improviser, you have to get out of your way and be in the moment and be present and fully present to listen to what the other person says. And yes, and you know, absolutely acknowledge what you just said, and let's go ahead and take that another step further. And so really, and I also look back too, thinking, man, I embodied some characters, like not possession or anything. I like the term embodiment, because embodiment is where you kind of just like step into the idea of someone. And I had some stock characters where I remember when I would step into them, I didn't have to think about what I would say. Like a lot of people, if you step into, like the crazy Latina, you're going to be thinking, how would she react to this? Where I would step into a character, I didn't have to think. It was like they just spoke through me. It was kind of fun.
So I want to go back just for a second when you were talking about your family business being broken into.
Mm-hmm.
Being a psychic, is there anything like do you receive any sort of like, hey, like spidey senses where you go, oh, I think my business is getting broken into? Like, was there any warning to you? Do you ever receive any type of projection like that when before something happens?
You know, I don't often. Um, and I think part of it is because I'm pretty in tune and open, but I'm also, like you said earlier, do the best you can, live the best life you can, take care of yourself, stay healthy, do whatever. And it's like, just go with whatever comes, so, like I said, like with the cruise, I kept checking in. I felt like I was supposed to go. People told me I was crazy to get on a boat March 10th, but I just kept feeling like this is what I'm supposed to do. And I knew that I could get on the boat could get, COVIDed, and we could be circling the Pacific Ocean for 30 days until we were allowed to get off. I very well knew that. And knowing that, I thought, okay, then that's part of my path right now. Something is going to come out of that I need to experience or I need to learn. So do I get a feeling of like, oh, the business is going to be broken into? I think I would if I needed to thwart it, stop it, alert somebody, but I think that business being broken into was probably because of a of fear of being broken into. I mean, our family, it was broken into a lot. So they always were afraid that it was going to get broken into again. And for me, that's setting the intention. And, I probably said this the last time because I say it almost every client. Worry is a prayer for the very thing you do not want to happen. So if you're constantly worrying, are they going to dump me? Are they going to dump me? You're basically telling the universe, please, let's find a way for them to dump me. Clients come to me like, oh my God, I lost my job. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. Did you love your job? No, I hated it. I didn't want to go to work every day. I'm like, okay, I think the universe gave you what you wanted.
Right.
You don't have that job anymore. And if someone hates their job, I'll say, listen, first of all, let's set the intention that you can find a way to love this job or bring about a new job. Again, let's manifest, let's create it. So do I get the spidey sense? I would say yes, but I will check in and say, is there something I need to do? Is this a precognitive thing that I need to step in and do? Like with animals, I see animals, I'm not the one that brings animals home. I'm driving down the road. If I see an animal, I usually say, thank you for your being that little warrior showing me, do I need to stop? Or are you there for somebody else? Is your path, what is your path? Because I loved it, and I'm not necessarily a quote, but I love this thought that, just because you love to save people and things you could be screwing up their karma big time. Their karma may be to fall flat on their face and suffer through this. And someone who's been, clean and sober for 28 years, no one's going to help me out of drinking myself silly. I had to figure that out for myself. If you Baker acted me or locked me up, I probably would have done what I needed to do, got out, and gone right back to the same old thing.
Right.
Where I had to figure it out myself. So, and I, you know, putting myself, quote unquote, as a, believing in soul contracts, putting myself into a family, the middle of boy of three, closeted, morbidly obese 15-year-old kid, you know, conservative environment, all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't change a thing because I am who I am today. And I really kind of like who I am today. I love who I am today. There's still my moments of learning and growing and shadows and stuff like that. But, I look back on where I've been and I don't feel sorry for that person. It was tough. I believe everybody's had, a road that is what's the word I'm looking for? It's their perspective, or no, there's another word I'm looking for. It's all subjective to who we are. Like they've had their own trials, tribulations, just like I have. Some look and appear to be a whole lot worse than others. But again, that could be part of their karmic path coming into this lifetime to experience that craziness that they had to go through. Um, and hopefully as they continue growing, learning, moving, that they become and evolve and become stronger, fell in love with themselves even more, been able to help other people because of their own pain and suffering, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, I with me, I like who I am. I know I love who I am. I know there's still things in me that I could change that would probably be better, but I'm okay with those things. And I go, I don't know if I want to change that. I'm sure that at some point that I may want to change those things, but for the most part, I'm pretty good with who I see in the mirror. And then that's when you take stock of yourself, and I think that's important. In your growth. If you're the same person you were 20 years ago, that's a sad thing. When you haven't grown in 20 years, mentally or emotionally, that you still think and act the same way you did 20 years ago. I find that to be extremely sad. And yet I
Yeah.
see that with a lot of people because they won't challenge themselves. They won't look at themselves because they don't want to see the ugliness.
Yeah.
They're afraid of it. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why we live in a society where there are so many ugly people. And and it's manifested by their actions.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about physically. I'm just talking about how we treat one another, how there is, a lack of compassion amongst a great deal of people in this country. And I was going to ask you, is there, like, when we're going through all this craziness, does this affect the spirit world? Does this affect the spirits around us? Does it,
Yeah. Well, I don't know that necessarily affects them, and you probably follow along the whole lines of, like, time is our construct and an illusion that we've
right,
chosen to step into. So in my mind, spirits outside of the body, anybody, anything out there, they saw this coming. They knew this was coming. They knew this was part of the path. They knew one way or another we're going to hit something like this, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people are calling this like a great awakening. For me, I feel like it's forcing us to focus on ourselves and internal, um, and find out, what is happening. I was listening to, I'm trying to remember who the podcast was the other day, and they talked about, if your phone gets a virus, you know, what do you usually do? You upgrade the program to prevent that virus from coming in. Where, here we are, a virus attacking us. We're trying to just, like, you know, you know, just calm the curve. I think this is an upgrade of the potential for us to upgrade who we are and where we're going from here. Um, Rather than just trying to, bring it back to where it was before, COVID-19. It's like, okay, let's figure out how we can, set our defenses up that we won't be affected by this in the future, versus, just accepting it and kind of like, okay, it'll all be over soon and we'll be back to normal. It's like, let's find a way energetically, not physically, but energetically, let's find a way where we can, figure out how this doesn't happen again from a very high spiritual kind of a place. So you know, does it affect the spiritual world? I think the spiritual world is, you know, kind of like looking at a lot of these things and going, look at all the opportunities for growth. Look at this group, these people, that person, growth, change, shift. There's a lot of hands being raised saying, okay, I'll take control, I'll step up, I'll do something, I'll change. I mean, in the last 4 years, I have learned more about politics than I ever wanted to know, but I did it because I felt I needed to be well informed what's going on. In the last 6 months, actually in the last, well, since pretty much since, May 28th, I think that was Memorial Day, I've tried to listen to and grow as much as I can about, racism, systemic racism, just I mean, like, I did not know what Tulsa was. I had no idea about Tulsa. I was not taught that. So again, here's opportunity for growth. And I'm like, let me step up and take this moment to educate myself about truth.
Do you think you're an exception to the rule though? Because I see a lot of, unlike you, I see a lot of people. There's a lot of reluctance out there to grab hold of this potential of growth at this time where I think you're right. I think it's out there. I think this is a time for us to grow.
Well,
And yet I see people just like running from it as fast as they can.
well, here's my great analogy of that. I shouldn't say my great analogy, but one that dropped in my head. This is a big pile of shit that's been thrown on this country, and I see pile of shit as a really good place to grow. I mean, you put any seed in that pile of shit, and that is amazing fertilizer. And you just said the perfect answer. People look at that pile of shit and they run. They run from it. Oh, it stinks. It's awful. Of course it stinks. Of course it's awful, but it's a great place to grow. So, and I don't know where in my quote unquote lifetime that I, you know, jump in the pile of shit and said, let me grow versus run from it. But there was a point where I kind of started going, okay, you know what? Why is this happening? What can I learn from this? How can I grow? How can I learn? And I said this maybe 3, 4 months ago, so probably a month into it, on just one of my own lives on Facebook. I said, this, for those who call themselves light workers or do this kind of energy, psychic, woo woo, whatever healing stuff that I quote unquote do, I said, this is the time we've been waiting for. We've been preparing for this moment for a long time. And one of the reasons why I felt I could say that and should say that was because as I'm going through all this, I think I even said this early on. I don't know if I said it on live or not, but I'm eerily calm. I'm very peaceful about all that's going on. And not because, I'm not afraid I'm not going to get sick or something like that. Yes, I've been fortunate to continue to get paid. I've been redeployed all over the place, front line, sideline, wherever you want to call it. But I've been very calm about the direction things are going. And I think that's me, wallowing and playing in the pile of shit going, okay, this is kind of warm,
Yeah.
now I'm used to this. And I know any moment now, I'm going to first get my roots down. And I probably already got them down. And then I'm going to start going up. And then eventually there's going to be some fruit up.
I Yeah, I like your metaphor for a pile of shit because I think it's perfect. I love it because what I find is that if you don't jump in that pile of shit, it's going to follow you around. You can run from it, but it's going to follow you. You're never going to get rid of that pile of shit. And as long as you keep running from it, you're just putting off the inevitable. And
especially with this is global. So I mean,
right,
it's like
where do you run?
I'm trying to remember whichever country doesn't have any cases right now. I think they shut their borders for anybody to come in. So it's not like you can run and hide from quote unquote, this pandemic.
But these people who keep running from the pile of shit, if you will, they seem to be so unhappy.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do. They seem to be the angriest, the meanest, the least compassionate. That they just because they're thwarting their own growth
Yeah.
and their own potential, and they're mad at everybody else for I don't know, maybe leaving them behind. I don't know why they're so mad.
And you probably figured it out by now, but I can say spirit, meaning God, source, whatever. Spirit gives me images a lot of times, and the image that I've always been given about what you just said is, imagine you're in a boat on a river and you're holding onto a branch, and where you are holding onto that branch is where you are right now, and that feels very familiar, and familiar is often safe. Now your arms are getting tired, but yet familiar still feels more safe than as much pain your arms are in. You'll tie yourself up to that branch or hold on to the branch as long as you can because it's familiar, you know. And this is what a lot of people do in abusive relationships. They're afraid to leave a lot of times because of that's familiar. Also because they may not have financial support. They may feel like they're going to be alone, or they've been brainwashed that if they leave, their world's going to be shit. They're going to die. They're going to get hunted down. Whatever, somebody else in their life. So there's a lot of that. So the challenge for people to do is let go of that branch because if you use the analogy, you're in a river. What's downstream? You've been told there's waterfalls downstream, but you might circumvent that waterfall in a very calm, peaceful one. But your path may be to go over that waterfall and experience what it's like to hit the bottom of that water and come up, swimming on the other side. And again, it's like, and you may also get into that place where you're just in that what is the pool where you just
Whirlpool,
where you just keep circling around, and you might have to literally, because you let go of the branch, but now you're stuck in a whirlpool because that groove was deep. So you might have to get out and swim a little bit to get downstream, which ultimately for me, downstream would be to the ocean, to the body of water, which would be quote unquote back to source energy, going back into all that is.
Well, I had a guest on last week, and his name's Larry Winget, very popular guy, wrote several best-selling novels, and he said he's a motivational speaker along with many other things. But he calls himself the world's only irritational speaker, and the reason is because he goes, I don't believe in pushing positivity and mindset and all that nonsense. He goes, I believe in people having to experience the negativity. It's not that he's not optimistic or about positiveness, but he goes, we can't get to where we need to be without accepting the negativity. And his point is that you have to be in a place that's so negative because he believes people move from negativity, not from positivity. So it's like I can paint this pretty picture over here for you, but it's not enough to get you to go there. The reward would have to be so enormous and it would have to be guaranteed. That's why people don't do what it takes. They go, I want to be a millionaire, but they won't do what it takes to become a millionaire because it's not guaranteed that if they put in all this work that they're going to reach that goal. Mm. And he was saying, if you put a person in a position of negativity enough to where they're so uncomfortable, they have to leave. And I get that from what you just said. I'll use the example of a person who's afraid of dentists will have a toothache and will not go to the dentist because that pain he understands. He goes, you know what, I can deal with this. Couple aspirin, whatever, I can deal with this. But he's scared to death to go to the dentist. The only time he'll go to the dentist is when that pain becomes so intolerable that he cannot deal with it any longer and he has to go. Then he gets the tooth pulled, filled, whatever it is that they do to fix his tooth, and all of a sudden he doesn't have pain. And he realizes that thing he feared the most actually helped him.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, what you were just saying is like when we're willing to let go of that branch and we're willing to allow ourselves to move forward into a place that's unfamiliar, that may be outside of our comfort zone, that is where growth happens. It happens outside of, no growth ever happens inside our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And yet it's like pulling teeth to get people to do exactly that.
Well, and using the analogy of personal training too, and muscles, the soreness from a muscle, it's because you ripped it.
Right.
And then it's going to grow stronger so you can lift more weight again.
Exactly.
The growth and the cool thing is, and you use that analogy, the cool thing is it's in the resting phase that, you're rebuilding to go back out again. So that's what I would almost call the light and the shadow, or the positive and negative. That cycle that we kind of go through.
Right. But you have to be able to experience both.
Yeah.
You can't just, I believe that, we should focus on solutions and not the problems, but don't ignore the problems. Don't pretend they're not there. Identify the problem and then find a solution for it.
And that's actually what a lot of people believe, as in why we're here, is that God or source energy is all that is. And all that is cannot experience itself if it is all that is. So the only way for it to experience itself is to have that moment of separation. And that moment of separation then creates you experiencing the light aspect, the dark aspect. You know the old saying, you can't have day without night.
Right.
You have to have both. So there's that cycle. So, and that's something that Wayne Dyer said that I remember thinking, oh, that's like my religion, right? That's my belief right there. And that is that we have come here as beings in this time construct to experience everything we can so we can take it back to source energy. And that source, God, spirit, whatever, can have an experience or understand what it's like to be itself, to be separate, to be living, in this place.
All right. So let's do this. Let's change gears a little bit.
Huh?
All right. So let's go to uh you do a show with, is her name Miss V?
Yes.
Miss V. Okay.
Yeah.
I happen to catch you. You do a show on
Or
Facebook.
just be, yeah.
Okay, on V. And on you do it on Facebook on what night?
Usually every other Monday night.
Every other Monday night?
7
Okay.
p.m. Eastern Standard.
I happened to be on Facebook at the time when I saw you guys on there, and she's a who. I think she's got a great
Oh,
personality.
yeah.
And it was fun watching you two. And then I was very fortunate to be on there at the time where you go, okay, we're going to take 8 people. You can ask a question. I happen to be one of those, and I asked you both. I said, will, because I wanted to know, will, and I hope you don't mind. I haven't
Nope.
used it yet, but I recorded it because I wanted to send it um, to Queen Latifah, and I asked the question, will Queen Latifah be a guest on my show?
Oh, that's
And
fine.
V said immediately yes. And I was like, oh, all right. That's so cool. And then you had to come and ruin it by going, yeah, but you got to work at it. And I was like,
I believe I said stay humble and
you did say that, but you said it's going to take
not
some
that you
effort.
aren't. Yeah. And it takes some effort. But, and I think the biggest thing is just, I know this sounds weird saying it this way, but like, oh my gosh, I just realized why I probably was saying it this way, because her name is Queen Latifah. Because what I'm thinking is humbly approach the throne,
Right.
And that's funny because I'm sitting there going, okay, that's because she's Queen Latifah. But yeah, and it's not that you don't do that or you aren't humble, but it's one of those things where I think I even use the word respectfully, humbly and respectfully, kind of approach you to come
Right.
at it. But I felt it would happen as well. So.
And see, I think that what you did was, it was a reminder, and I do that even with personal training. I'll tell someone to focus. I'll go, okay, focus on pushing your feet through the floor, and then after they'll go, wasn't I doing that? And they go, yes, you were. I'm just reminding you,
Yeah.
so you keep focus there. So when you said, approach it respectfully and humbly, I was like, I understood why you told me that, not
Yeah.
because you didn't think I wouldn't, but just to be, to reinforce that, and I
Yeah.
agree. So yeah. And so I was excited about that because I know I'm going to have Queen Latifah on my
Woohoo.
show. Don't know how it's going to happen yet, but it will happen.
Nice.
So,
I set that intention and agree with you, and
Yes.
so it is.
and so I want you to thank V
I will.
for that as well. I appreciate it. So when you're giving a reading, like if you were to sit down and you were to give me a reading, and I said, well, how would I come? Well, like, do I have a list of questions? Like, I want to know about my career. I want to know about my love. I want to know about my future. What do most people do when they come in? Like, what kind of questions should they ask?
So I tend to attract people who. So this is what typically happens. Like, okay, you have a reading with me 7:00 on Tuesday night. It's either FaceTime, it's Skype, or it's just phone, or WhatsApp, or however we connect. So I may see you, I may not see you. And, I welcome you. I thank you for the time that we have together. Make sure that we still have a good 30 minutes, that nothing got in the way. And then I say, and I set a very clear intention for us to the time that we're going to have together. And for me, I'm a bullet point kind of guy. So I'm like, I set the intention that we would all receive healing, guidance, confirmation, grounding, centering, balance, peace, harmony, alignment, joy, abundance, love, great care, compassion, health, wellness, safety, courage, and encouragement. Yes, I have it memorized, and there's some other things, but I won't bore you because it takes me like 40 seconds. And that's kind of like my prayer, my way of starting, but it's the energy of the words that are very positive that I want to happen. And then I say, now the hardest question for you to answer is, how would you like me to work for you? I can either do what I call dance for grandma, which is basically me opening up to spirit, seeing if anybody wants to come through, or throw some cards down. Because I usually throw 5 cards down before I call someone, just so I can tap into their energy, get a little better idea of what I'm getting into. And almost 80%, 90% say, do your thing. And I always say, we can do give and take, or if you want, I'll do 90% of the talking. Some people want me to quote prove stuff to them, and I don't mind doing the talking and saying what I get. I usually will say, let me know what resonates with you. If something doesn't, you can say, oh, I don't understand that. And I'll either dig a little deeper, or you can say, yes, I know, no, I don't know, and I'll dig a little deeper. And or I may push back and say, hold on to that because that may come to you later. I only say that if I really feel like it's something that I feel is important, but you need to just remember for a later time. And I usually get an email like later and said, oh my gosh, I forgot about my uncle. That was the one you were talking about. So then I'll say, how would you like me to work? And they may say, oh, I have some questions about my love life. I say, okay, let me just tap into your love life. And let me see what I see. You don't have to tell me anything more. They say, oh, I'm looking forward to hearing from someone. I said, well, let me open up, see who shows up. It could be just a guide of yours that you have no idea, or it could be a relative or someone that crossed over, or it could be your second grade teacher who's just going to be the mouthpiece for today. Usually they know who it is and there's a connection to them. If they're very open and very spiritual people and do this work themselves, then a lot of times it's like a higher guide or an angel or something like that that's working through, because they're already connecting to loved ones who've crossed over. They feel a very strong connection to them. But then if you have like a very specific question, like I'm about to start a new business and I want to know what the best way to approach it is, then I'll pull cards for that. Typically, if we're talking here and now, kind of psychic stuff, which would be this dimension, then I'm going to probably pull cards rather than not. But oftentimes I veer away from the cards as well. If I'm talking animal communication or someone who's crossed over or passed on, and I usually am not using cards, I'm just working directly with spirit energy. So, I give them the opportunity, like recently, it's so funny. Recently I had, and this is over a couple of different weekends because I do most of my readings on Saturday mornings. But I had like two siblings and a mother, three separate ones, and one of them was like the mother and the child was back to back, like in that morning. And they said, oh, I want to hear from somebody. I said, well, listen, you know, I I don't want to divulge, confidentiality of who I've been speaking with. I said, but I feel like I'm going to be talking to someone I've already talked to recently. So I want to be very transparent. And I said, I'm going to ask if this specific person you want to talk to, I want to ask you to tell me their first name, because if it's the same as one before, then I need to let you know I've already connected with this energy. I know a lot about them already. And they said, yes. I said, okay. 30 minutes ago, I was talking to this, loved one on the other side. So just so you know, I've already talked to him. And he's like, well, I have different questions and different things. And he was just asking me point blank questions. And I can tell, a lot of times guys want to know, like, okay, show me that you're talking to someone on the other side. Women are more trusting and they're more readily available to believe that, where guys a lot of times like, okay, I need you to prove to me that you're talking,
Right.
And I get that. Trust me, I get that. I'm a very logical person, and I, like I said, I'm being transparent with him. And I said, you're asking something that I have not connected with. I said, here's what I feel this person is saying, I'm connecting with his energy, and it made sense to him, and he felt comfortable. And then he started tapping this up. I said, well, I've kind of already had this conversation with this person, so let me reiterate what I said without divulging personal information from a previous family member that talked about it. Because just like a therapist or a lawyer or whatever, I don't share information with other people. And I said, so here's, what I'm getting. So, and it was very interesting because I've never had like multiple people in separate sessions. A lot of times I'll get like, siblings together. One time I had a whole family of like 5 sisters sitting down at a table. That was fun. But yeah, so it just depends on if you want specific areas or specific questions. I absolutely allow them to ask that.
So do you need your cards to be able to do a reading or not? Or do
No,
you use them as a
no,
tool?
I use them because I love them.
Oh, okay.
It's really because I love them. Like, and the other thing, if I'm sitting across from someone and they don't know me, cards can be a nice distraction because then we're both looking down to the table rather than me staring at you like I'm looking into your soul. So that can help people sometimes, especially if I do like psychic fairs where, 20 minutes, every 20 minutes you get a new person, they're all looking down at the cards and I'm pointing to them, we're talking about it, rather than, hey, how are you? I'm looking into your soul. But yeah, and yeah, so I don't necessarily have to have, but like I said, I just feel like cards have been something I've been connected to. I mean, even when I was a child, I was enthralled with playing cards, rook, spades, Hearts, Triple E, you name it. I love board games and stuff like that. And I'll never forget a year and a half ago, I'm at the big Reader Studio conference in New York. It's the largest tarot conference in this country. And a friend was up there. He's like, you want to know what your life purpose is? He says, I want you to think back when you were a child. What did you love to do? And I remember thinking, oh my God, I love to sit around the table with old women and play cards. And I remember just like laughing out loud so hard because I'm literally looking around the room. Not that I'm in a room full of old women, but I am in a room full of mostly, like out of 150 people, probably 120 of them are 55 or older men and women who are holding cards in their hands. Now, we were obviously playing, different games back then, but here I am, 55 years old, 54 years old, sitting in a room with mostly women, cards in their hands, which is what I loved to do as a kid. I sat with my grandmother so many weekends playing rook and spades and Yahtzee and all, sitting at a table with cards mostly. So it's just bizarre. So when you were a child, what did you love to do?
When I was a child, I was very competitive at everything I did. So my folks would get together as family, my aunts and uncles, my mother and all them, and they would play cards and they would bet money. And so I remember going around and watching how everyone played, and I learned so I could beat them. And they didn't want to let me at the table. When they finally did let me at the table, I would beat them, and then they wouldn't let me at the table anymore.
So you loved
I love
looking
competition.
at the process.
Whatever it was, whether it was chess, whether it was checkers, whether it was cards, Yahtzee, whatever, I wanted to win.
Yeah.
And I learned how to play it better than anyone else so that I would always win. And I did that even with sports.
Yeah.
And what I found is that with things that I didn't pick up quickly, like musical instruments, for instance, I would lose patience. With sports, I was very athletic, so I was able to pick up sports very quickly. And
well,
cards,
is there competition in music instrument stuff?
No, not. I mean, there is, but it's not till
Yeah.
you have to become a master at it. See, and I think that's with sports. You don't have to master the sport. There's always someone at your level that you can compete against, and then work your way up to the master level. And same way with cards, you learn very quickly, according to who you're playing with and how they play, and your game gets better with the better players. I went out to Vegas and learned how to play blackjack, and realized this is how you win. But you have to have other players who know how to play in order to win.
Yeah.
And so you get very upset. And again, that's
when there's a novice sitting there.
There's a theme that runs through me. I get upset with people when they're not learning. And so, like, I can't play. I played competitive volleyball. I'm only 5'10", and yet I've won tournaments with two-man volleyball, beach volleyball, because I'm so competitive.
Yeah.
And I learned how to play volleyball the right way. I cannot play with a bunch of people who hit the ball like this.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. It drives me crazy. And so I purposely
so you're not on the varsity gay league then.
Yeah, no, I'm not. And I couldn't even, they wanted me to join the softball league, and I was like, I went out there and watched them play. Go, yeah, I can't do this. I'm sorry.
I did dodgeball for a while, and it was not fun.
Really?
We had our team. We were 50 Shades of Gay. We had a good time, but the first 3 nights there, I literally went, oh my God, I am working out childhood issues left and right, because A, most of the teams were much younger than us, and B, they were extremely competitive. And then some of them, not that they would cheat, but they obviously got hit, but didn't get out because the ref didn't see them. Yeah. And I was like, it angered us.
Right.
And it was one of those things because that was something, I would play games with my older brother who cheated all the time. I hated that. And back then I didn't know how to tell him, you're cheating. I don't want to play with you anymore. So it was really interesting, but it was literally like therapy. It was like therapy.
That's why I wouldn't join gay leagues, only because I know that the majority of those teams were out there to just have fun. And to me, I would not have fun unless I'm winning.
Not this dodgeball team. There's 2 of them that we hated playing.
Let's see, I have to win.
They know who they are.
Yeah. And that's why even with like when I started bicycling and going, I would do go 50 miles. I take my friends out, we do a 50-mile trek. I refused to do it competitively because I knew if I started doing it competitively, I would never enjoy just having a ride with them. And so I made sure I didn't do that. So I have to dial back the competitiveness on things that I just want to enjoy for the sake of enjoyment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just very competitive with things like that, and I've always been that way. And I hate losing because I don't mean hate lose. Like if I lose, I don't sit there and go, oh, I hate it. I will learn from. I will. Why did I lose? And so I hate losing so much. I will learn and become better. I was the guy who was out of the racquetball courts hours and hours by myself, hitting the ball off the wall, learning how to serve it, and chasing the ball down until I learned how to hit it back to myself.
Yeah.
And I was that guy who would do that for hours and hours, day after day, until I could beat everyone out there. And that's just who I
Yeah.
was and who I am. Even now, I'd like to say that I'm not nearly as competitive as I used to be, um, because I want to have the number one podcast in the world, and that means unseating Joe Rogan. I realize I'm nowhere near in Joe Rogan's league. What I do know is that if I continue doing what I need to do, I can get there. And that means me listening to Joe Rogan's podcast hours and hours and hours and listening and doing hours and hours of talking to myself in the camera and having guests and learning about how I repeat certain things like, and again,
Yeah.
I say that all the time. And so I make a mental note, don't say and again over and over, because then it
Well, and
just,
rather than say don't say and again, write down a list of words
right.
to choose instead of that.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do. And so I make a mental note of those things I repeat, and then I'll go, okay, what are all my options? And then I'll use different options according to, the context of the conversation. So with enough about me, let's do more about me. No. So how would you
Enough
like,
about me talking about me. You
yeah,
talk about me.
exactly.
That's how it goes.
So let's have you talk about how would you like to do like a short read on me.
Okay.
We'll do three things, and this is just so people know you had no time to prepare. Okay, and while I have had you on the show before, you do know a little bit about me, but it's very little, and it's not easy for you to find information on me, so you're not going to be able to just Google me, and then I'm not famous enough to be to have all my life history up there. So one day, maybe, not yet. So how about we do I want to talk about relationship, uh, my career, and then you just do your thing, like you said,
Okay.
and you spend whatever time you want, whether it's 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you want, whatever you feel is necessary. I know you don't have your cards on you. Is
That's
that going
okay.
to be a hindrance?
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
And this will give people a feel for when they come to you, what it's like. And I want to make sure that we give out your information so everyone knows how to reach you. And I do encourage them to check you and V out every other Monday night on Facebook.
Yep.
And make sure that they have your Facebook information so they can catch you guys, because I thought what you guys did was great. The energy was really great, and this is coming from someone who is somewhat of a skeptic, as I've told you before. I'm not cynical, because I believe people who are cynical never have the opportunity to learn or to accept things. And so, but I am skeptic because, like you said, most men, they want proof.
Yeah.
And so it's who we are. It's ingrained in us to go, yeah, show me some proof.
Yeah.
So,
And and not to make an excuse, but this is not a science. That's the thing.
Right.
And science is where you get proof. This is where you have to trust a little bit. And I always tell people, if it resonates with you, hold on to it. If it doesn't, let it go.
all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the things that you tell me, just because, like you said, we tend to hear what we want to hear.
Yeah.
And so
Well, you've got it recorded.
Right. Oh,
So-
that's true. Yes. I can always go back to
totally
that.
got it recorded. No pressure whatsoever. And
Yeah,
I don't feel any pressure. So let me step into relationship first. So it's interesting. So, and I'll explain kind of how I'm working, because I love to teach. So like moment you said relationship, I literally saw someone standing next to you, not like right there next to you, but just like energetically. And I do know from our previous conversation, or it was off-air conversation, who you are typically attracted to. And they do look like a typical person that you're attracted to. They, and when I say what I'm seeing, it might fit what they look like, but it also could be just the energy of their personality. Because, I see someone probably like, they're like 30s, early 30s or late 20s. They feel kind of tall. I feel like they might be taller than you. I do feel like they're kind of, fair skin, like light color hair. And it's interesting because I don't know if this person is like currently in your life or it's a past one that still kind of comes in and out, because it doesn't feel to me, it doesn't feel solid, like there's that solid relationship, like if you introduce this person to someone that you say, oh, this is my boyfriend, or this is my partner, or this is my husband. But it does feel like someone who's very very meaningful to you, someone alive, not anybody that's crossed over. um, but and so does that make any sense? Is there currently someone there? That's, and I'll just kind of yes or no.
No.
Okay. The reason I asked that is because as I step forward, so interesting, there's something funny about like this person's name, and this could be just a good friend of yours that also, but it makes me feel like there's someone very much connected with you. But if their name makes me feel like it's something, very comical, like not like that typical like Chad or I know it's kind of funny, it's like that Chad or Brad, or just a very typical, um, just typical white boy name. I hate to say it like that, but and it's interesting because they feel like, and I'm just touching, I feel like this person might not be working or having a job during what's going on with pandemic, which I know that a lot of people that situation, but there is definitely a feeling of connectedness to you. I'll use the word little brother, but it feels like there had been, or it was a romantic relationship kind of connection there as well. Um, and here's the other thing. This is where I'm listening to spirit as well. This is where this could be someone who is from your past that is also kind of like still, you're still kind of holding on to them, and you may not be able to quote unquote let go of their energy, which could keep you from finding something in the future. Not like you're hung up, you're stuck on them, but this may be someone that you compare other relationships to, or you keep them in mind as you meet other people, as you step into dating or relationships like that. But it definitely, or it's someone that it's just like that best friend that you're like, I just had a date last night, let me tell you about it. And like someone that you connect with them in that kind of sense. um, Make any sense?
Not right offhand.
That's
I
okay.
mean, I've dated a lot of people, so it's, um,
But and like I said, it feels like they're still very active in your life. So it definitely feels like they're still very active in your life. I don't think what I'm feeling is predictive of like this is coming down your way, but it definitely feels like someone that is active in your life. Um, and they're involved because we're talking about romance, and they're involved somehow in that. So it, like I said, it feels like there's a connection, like best friend or something like that. If it doesn't make sense, we'll just leave it there.
I'll keep that in mind. And if something pops up, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah, and if I tap into their energy, physically they feel away from here, but I feel like this is their home. So again, it feels like someone who may not be in this area that you live in right now, but this is their home. So again, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know a lot of people have quote unquote gone home where they came from because they may not be able to pay rent or whatever like that. But it feels like they're out of the area for the time being. But I feel like they'll return. I feel like they'll be back in this area when things kind of shift and change a little bit. Um, but it just feels like there's, like I said, a pretty good heart to heart connection, a little brother kind of connection, but also there feels like there either was romantic. I don't think it's going back to romance kind of in the future, but it feels like it's connected to where you are romantically. Um, so I'll ask this: are you currently seeing someone?
Yes.
Okay, and let me tap into that energy. It's interesting because immediately, totally different energy. It feels like meeting you head to head, which makes me feel like, I don't know, be blunt. It makes me feel like closer to your age, closer to your mindset. Um, the image I get, I'm trying to think of who's a good example of who I'm getting. Who was on Seinfeld? Putty, was that his name? I don't know the actor's name. Um, but he has that deep voice, and I think he does commercials now. I think his name was Putty, and it's who Elaine dated on Seinfeld. I can't think of the actor's name. He's a very funny character actor. I think he's the voice of like the American Dad or somebody like that.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking
But
about.
yeah, so I'm getting like that kind of like tall energy, kind of dark hair. The hair is very important to this person. It feels like. Um,
That would be correct.
yeah, and like I said, I'm going to be blunt here. Are they closer to your age?
No.
Okay.
I will say this. You said something about mindset. He has an incredible. I mean, mindset wise, we're identical.
Yeah, because it's like you meet them. It's not like a separate generation, or again, I feel like you meet head to head mind wise. Politics, society, all this kind of stuff. It's like definitely head to head there. Um,
That would be true.
so I'm asking how much I should say, and how I should say it because I don't want anybody. So I feel there's someone still in that person's life. Are they still either
What?
Are they st- are they still either married or attached to someone else?
No.
Okay, they're completely 100.
Yeah.
Okay, and this could be just like an ex that's like their best friend now or something like that. But it's like there's still someone in their life, and not like they're cheating or anything like that.
Right.
But it's like it makes me feel like there's someone very important and special to him. Um, were they married previously? And there's
No,
no.
he's never been
Okay.
married.
Because yeah, sorry, I don't
Have
think
you?
I don't think I don't think you're cheating.
No,
I don't think you're cheating. I just feel like there's someone very important to them, like that's in their life. I don't think it's a child, because a lot of times I'll pick up children as like quote unquote very important kind of people in their lives, but it just makes me feel like there's someone very special that's kind of like that they're very connected to and concerned with. Um, and I don't think it's a parent either, because a lot of times, when we get to be our age, we take care of our parents, and that becomes quote unquote like a responsibility, like a child feels sometimes.
well, I have to say he's not my age. Mentally and mindset wise, he's my age.
Okay.
So that's why when you said that, you could see him with the same mindset,
Yeah.
because
And this is where I try not to stretch things as a psychic and medium, because like I'm reading energy, and this is where like I said, I'll say I'm not trying to stretch it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's quote unquote an old soul. And you could look at him and kind of like, you have you always been like this?
right.
Like that, like you probably came out of the womb, looking like you were, 60 years old. Not like physically, but just
Right.
like that attitude. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's probably what I'm picking up on. But then that's why I try not to stretch things and make things fit, because that's what people get frustrated with a lot. Um, but yeah, I like, now this is where let me just tap in. I like the relationship. Um, it's funny because I don't know if you've been in a relationship long enough to be traveling, but it's like there's this almost like a panic, like I want to travel, I want to travel, I want to travel. It's like you're waiting for things to change so you can get back out there and travel. So I don't know if this is either you or him wanting to quote unquote I can show you the world.
Right.
It's like there's this like it's like I want to show you places, I want to take you places, but there's this kind of like this feeling of like I want to go out, I want to travel. And that could, we're all feeling a little bit of that as well. And that could also be just, I want to show you off. You're someone that is important to me. I want to let other people know you're in my life, kind of a thing. Um, so I'm seeing what looks like, I don't think it's a basketball. It looks more like a soccer ball. I doubt it's a volleyball, but I keep seeing like a soccer ball. So I don't know if they're athletic or not, but it's like and the reason I go with soccer ball is because I feel like it's down at the foot. So I don't, are they involved in soccer at all that you know? No. Because it's like there's this playing with the ball, playing with one ball.
I will not touch that.
Yeah, let's not. But like I said, and this is where spirit could just be showing me an athleticness to them. And I know you're an athletic guy. Doesn't necessarily mean they are, but there's definitely or they're involved. They love watching soccer/football. But there's definitely like an athletic kind of component to them. Any specifics about the relationship that you're interested in?
I mean, I will say this. He is the first person who I can honestly say I trust 100%.
Okay.
I know when, and again, I said that. When people talk about, I know that my partner has not cheated on me, I always go, how do you know?
Yeah.
Well, for the first time, I understand, because I do know.
Yeah.
It's something where he's completely honest about everything. Even if and that's how I am. Even if I know it's going to hurt you, I'd rather hurt you by telling you the truth than hurting you even worse by lying to you.
Yeah.
And he has that same mindset. He'd rather hurt me with the truth than to lie to me, knowing that it would hurt me even more down the line.
And as you're talking, it's funny because I keep seeing his mother come into the scene a lot. So I don't know if he's very active or involved, or mom is near or close or something like that. But mom's very much like in this scene. Okay, is she? Okay, good. She seems sweet and well intentioned, but it's like kind of in your business kind of a person. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's like the modern day June Cleaver. So,
Yeah,
so
not so much. I mean,
okay,
she's very much in his business.
okay,
I wouldn't say in a June Cleaver kind of
okay,
way,
yeah. So
like in
the
a Tiger Mom type of way,
oh,
type of.
okay, gotcha, gotcha. Um, so anything else about that?
No, I just want
Cool.
to get
And
your
then
thoughts on it.
what else did you say? Business.
Yeah, like career wise.
So career wise, so I just keep seeing steady, just steadily moving forward with career wise. And I'm not this podcast and stuff. I'm not quote unquote considering that your career right now because that feels to me like a separate burner on the stove. But I feel like your career is very solid, very stable. I just keep seeing you. Are you? I can't remember. Are you Earth energy? Are you Taurus, Virgo,
Libra.
Libra? Oh, really? Because I feel a lot of Earth energy. I probably said this last time because I just see you continue to steadily move forward, and it also could be the rhinoceros that are all around here because they're
Right.
very earthy beings. So that I feel very steady. Just continue to move forward. It's like business as usual is what I keep seeing into. Um, I will say that I feel like you're doing something to either modernize or quote, how do I say, not modernize or make it more of like a passive type of income type thing within the realms of like, the health and fitness and stuff like that. So I don't know if you're doing something where it's they can purchase by or just, download or stuff like that, where it's, what do you call that? Where it's, I said it just a second ago. Passive income.
Right.
Yeah, there feels like there's something passive income wise that either you're implementing or have just started, but it makes me feel like it's really going to help, especially with like the podcast stuff like that. Because I absolutely see your goal of being number one. I can see that as a. It's funny because it's like here's your career, and then it's like the podcast is over here, and it's like it's a very narrow road when I look at it. And it's like this is the direction I'm going to go. And like in my mind, when I push it out, push it out, push it out, push it out, I just keep seeing it going, which is a good thing. So I don't see you slowing down or stopping that. um, I see this is August, so before the end of this year I feel like you make a big shift in this. And what it makes me feel like is it narrows the road a little bit more. I see almost like you having a much clearer direction of how and where you want to take it. Um, so it's not so much. It's like it's branded better. It's your direction. People are going to tune into you specifically for this. Where it feels like before, I always said it was a narrow road, but it feels like it was wider than where it's going, which makes me feel good because then you become a little more specific and people know exactly what you're about. So it's like you really fine tune who you are and what it's about moving forward, especially before the end of this year, because I feel like 2021 is a really like a jumping off point. Um, and also, I feel like 2021, this will be for the prediction books. I feel like 2021 will be either sponsors stepping in or coming in that will help kind of offset or upgrade or do whatever financially for you. Um, yeah, I feel like you'll be able to tout and advertise some, not that you haven't had big names on, but names that really will draw people specifically in the next year. That could be when Queen Latifah comes in, but it definitely makes me feel like that kind of a name, like where you put the name out, you put the hashtag out or whatever, and it's like people are coming just to hear because of that specific person. And again, not that you haven't been doing some of that, but it's one of those where it feels a little bit more wider range. Um, you can reach a wider audience with a more narrow kind of platform. If that's
Yes, that makes
yeah
great sense.
yeah. Um, and I like the direction it's going. I mean, it feels for me, it feels good. It feels like it lines up with who you are. And I'm drawn back over to what I would call like your career. I keep podcasts separate, even though it is part of your career. Um, I don't ever see you kind of leaving like the kind of the health and fitness. I feel like that's always going to be kind of part of who you are and what you are.
It'll probably be always a small part of
Yeah.
who I am. I mean, when you do something for over 30 years, it's always going to be a part of
Yeah.
who you are. Um, so you're right. It's never ever going to completely go
Yeah.
away. I don't believe. However, the podcast is what I see to be my future.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you say, well, when that I'll narrow this down even more. One of the biggest challenges I've had through life, and this is, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I've been so talented to be able to do many things in my life that it paralyzes you because you go, okay, I could do this, I could do this,
Yeah.
I could do this. Which one do I do? I don't want to make the wrong choice. And
Yeah.
then you end up making no choices, and then you end up like with nothing.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
in tarot. That's called the Seven of Cups.
yeah, well,
It's the shadowy. It's the shadowy figure at the bottom of the deck, looking up at seven cups, and every cup has a different thing coming out of it: gold and jewels, a dragon, all these kind of things. A half naked woman, and all this stuff. And it's like, what do I choose? What do I choose? And either you get excited about all the choices and you pick one at a time and work through them, or you're paralyzed in fear. It's like the kid in the candy store who pees himself because there's so much candy, he doesn't know where to start.
right, yeah. And that's what I could see. I've gotten much better at it and going and doing just that and going, okay, I want to do this, so I'm going to start with this, regardless of what else happens, I'm going to start with this because this is the one I want the most and love the most.
Yeah.
So doing the podcast is what I love most. I love doing this. The direction that I want to go in, I have several directions I can go in. And so I've been at this crossroads sort of to go, do I keep it as wide as I have it? Do I narrow it down? And if I do, in what direction do I narrow it down?
Yeah.
And where will I be happiest? Because it really comes down to, people would say, well, it's, it's just obvious you should do a health and fitness podcast. And I go, no, it's not, because it would bore me to tears. I've done this for way too long. That's one of the reasons I want to do a podcast, is so I can talk about those things that I'm well versed in beyond the health and fitness world. And so, again, I still have several paths I can go down, and making that choice is, do I choose one of these paths? Does one of those paths choose me, or do I keep it wide and just keep all of them?
And it's funny because as you're talking, I keep seeing flashes, and I'll tell you all the flashes I see. First of all, the word is challenge, and I keep seeing like a title, like I challenge you, and like you period, almost like challenge university. Like it's like I see you as someone who challenges people's beliefs, challenge them to expand their mind. Like you seem to be here to challenge people in a good way, not in a bad way. Like
Right.
I challenge you to a duel, but I challenge you to.
I might do that too.
Yeah, but it's like I challenge you. Like literally, it could be like I challenge you. ... And that could be your podcast. And everything you do is all about how you're challenging people to open up their minds, their hearts, their souls, their pocketbooks, their I work in 5 dimensions: so spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. So I challenge you to open up spiritually. I challenge you to open up physically, spiritually, emotionally, socially, go out on a date with someone a type of person you never go out on a date with in your life and never would. That kind of a challenge, just see what it's like. But it's like that would be like, if you had a word that I would say would be like your mantra: challenge. How can I challenge myself? How can I challenge my people? And again, when I say that, I also follow up with people. I say, this is not me saying this is what you need to name your podcast or what you need to do, but this is the energy of what I feel for, like a direction that you already are going or could be going or would be great to be going.
I have to tell you, I love it.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, and I love that whole concept.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, because it could be like the Challenge University.
When you said that, I was like, oh,
because
like
then
I'll have to get the website now before this goes on air.
Yeah, because think about, and take the whole analogy. What is a university? It's made up of a whole bunch of different schools of thoughts.
Right.
There's the science department, the music department, and how can all those things be used to challenge people to grow, to expand?
That's a great concept. I owe you one.
Just it's my gift to you.
Okay, so we talked about relationship, we talked about career. All right, so now let's just open it up. And like you said, it's 80-90% of the people come to you and go, do your thing.
Do my thing.
Any spirits, anything that comes across to you.
So God, I feel like I did this last time with you, meaning like this person is coming through. This makes me feel like, and this feels like grandmotherly energy. but I'm also being pulled over to like England, Great Britain, that area. So is there any, are there any that you know of grandmothers' energies that go back to there?
See, you did, and it's funny that I don't know if you just have a great memory or not, but you did talk about a grandmother image, and I said, well, neither one of my
Yes.
grandmothers was I close to. You know,
And the reason I'm saying is because I'm seeing an image of a woman with tight curls and gray hair, and then I'm being pulled over to like England, like Great Britain area. That's so funny. We kept coming back to that. Um, and this would be one of those where you'd have to like do ancestor.com
right?
and find
Yeah.
out craziness of like, because do you know if there was any adoption up your family tree? Was anybody, any of the parents, grandparents, great grandparents, any of them adopted? Because I keep seeing, like, I keep being pointed to like someone put in a family that didn't belong, which for me, like, that feels like almost like they were adopted by somebody. Yeah. Were you adopted?
No, no, I wasn't.
Yeah. And again, that one, just tuck that in your back pocket and just
Sometimes I
hold on.
feel like I was, but I wasn't.
And then again, because I feel like I feel like I'm kind of like teaching. So like when I see that energy and I see your face and I feel connected to her, very round face, very round glasses, you know, like tight curly gray hair, and I'm being drawn over to England. I just kind of like, you know, then in my mind I'm like, here, what do you, especially when you don't know who it is. I'm like,
Right.
why are you here? What's going on? Do you just have a message? What do you know, what's up? Um, but and she, like I said, when I asked that, she's like, it's more about someone he knows. So then it's like, okay, you're going to be even more vague for me. So it's like either someone you know or someone that you were connected with. Um, so again, I'm asking if it feels like a friend and it feels like a female friend. So if there's a female friend in your life that may have been adopted, or again, this would be where it really becomes tricky, like her parents or grandparents or somebody adopted, but there's adoption feels like it's in the line of the family and she feels like she's connected somehow. But this would be someone that would be really close to you, especially if I felt the same thing, you know, months
Right.
ago. Um, and then I'm just like saying, you know, why are you here? What's going on? What's happening? But ultimately, it feels like a message for her. Um, and it makes me feel like a message of health, not in a scary, weird way, but almost like, you know how people who are adopted don't know hereditary issues because they don't know who their parents were? Makes me feel like someone's looking for that. Um, and I would say, just so this doesn't look like it's just random spirits dropping by, that you would find out who this is so that you can connect the dots. Because it's almost like if there's someone that you're close to or connected with that is looking for answers to hereditary issues and stuff like that, that they would be able to find it, or maybe you might be a connection or a link or something. Because this woman feels like she feels like she's blood relative of this person, where this person may not know who it is. That's why I keep thinking like, was somebody adopted? Because this person feels like they're pointing to who was put into the family. So this could have been like her kid or her grandkid that was adopted out, and she's trying to help them connect like that bloodline so they can find out any hereditary stuff. Um, and I'll be honest with you, this is the kind of stuff that I'm like, oh, you know what? I love if you could ever figure it out,
Right.
because it feels like it's so far out there, so far fetched, and it's fun, you know. And as someone, you know, these are the kind of things that when I first started learning doing this were very discouraging for me, because it's like I hear this woman, I can see this woman, I know she's real and connecting, but how is it connected? I don't know, and that's the weird part. And it took years of people coming back and saying, "Oh, I finally figured out what that meant." I'm like, "Thank you for telling me, so I don't feel like I'm crazy." Because that was one of my personal things, was helping to focus my energy so I'm not just picking up random spirits. Because then I will say, you know, do you have a message, you know, for Kurt? Is there something you want to, you know, tell him that, you know? And he's just like, when I say that, then I hear her say, you know, just reach out to your friends, show them your love, show them your connection. It feels like someone that you may have not, that you're not that you're not purposely distanced from, but you just haven't connected with them. So again, I keep feeling like it's like a best girlfriend or something like that you used to be real tight with, and maybe just, you know, you haven't talked to them in a while, or they just haven't been in your life, but it just makes you feel like reaching out to someone, kind of connecting with them. Um, so if someone, not necessarily right now, but if all of a sudden some of the pups on your radar, Facebook or something like that, and you haven't seen them in a while, and you feel like, oh, I wonder if this is it. It's just reach out and just say, hey, I hope everything's all right. What's new in your life, and just see where that leads you. It might take you down a nice rabbit hole. And then let me know.
I'll definitely let you know, because I mean, you'll definitely be back on the show, because we never got you to talk about. I wanted to talk about witches and warlocks and that.
Now that's a little outside of my.
I know, but I wanted to get your thoughts on them
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, because I know you know some of them, and I want to get your feelings on them. And so I it's almost been 2 hours. I can't believe it's gone that fast.
I know.
So it's like,
I try not to look.
right, exactly. So, and I love that, because then you get to, we get to have the conversations that we really want to have. So,
cool.
Well, thank you. I
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Oh, much appreciated.
So, how can people reach you if they want to get a reading from you or get in contact with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so mitchellosborn.com is my website, and that's where they can book a session, virtual stuff right now. The 30-minute sessions that I do, like I said, FaceTime, Skype, all virtual stuff. Monday nights, every other Monday night, V and I are doing we each pull a card for up to 8 people, and just kind of connect. Every Sunday night, I am on my Facebook page, and I alternate between a Sunday night of mindfulness, like the recording of this. I'm doing open heart meditation tonight, and then the alternate Sunday nights I do animal communication, and all of those are on my Facebook page, Mitchell Osborn, tarot reader, animal communicator, because I have two kind of one's my personal page, Mitchell Osborn, the psychic medium, and then the other one's more the business page. So I kept both of them going, because you can make things post at a certain time on a business page. If I'd known that ahead of time, I'd have done it. But yeah, so find me there. One cool thing that if you're new to me and you're not sure, you can go to my website, mitchellosborn.com, go to the tarot store, find a spread. There's a lot of 3-card spreads. And if you want to get like your first spread, then what I do is you pick the spread, if it's about love or if it's about, breaking habits or a birthday spread, what's the next year going to look like for you? You buy the spread, I record it on the unlisted YouTube, and I send it back to you. So it's very kind of quiet and private. And a lot of people who, still are like, I don't know if I should get a psychic reading yet. That's a cool place to do it from. And then you get to connect with my energy and see how I work. And then you can watch that privately where nobody knows you're doing it.
There you go. The next time you come back, I'm going to have my cat come in.
Oh, yay.
You can talk to him.
Absolutely, yeah.
Find out why he's such a little...
Well, before you say anything, here's the first thing I tell people. The animals are usually reflecting back what's going on in the humans.
Yeah, well, then it's got to be my best friend he's reflecting.
Oh, I love it.
Well, Mitchell, thank you for joining me. It was a blast as always, and I look forward to having you back on again. Yeah. And thanks for joining us. So until next time, folks, take care and see you later. Bye.